Hello and welcome from Lovely Villain Designs. Reese and I would like to extend a special welcome to the people who attended our workshop at the Columbiana Public Library. This is a little how-to video to show you how to make the paper bag journal that we were going to make in the workshop and then ran out of time. So this should show you, hopefully, how to put it together on your own. If you were not in attendance at the workshop and did not get the materials that we distributed at the end, you can still make this project. You can either use materials that you have on hand. It would be scrapbook paper, a paper bag, and a few other little things that you'll see in the video. What I'll do is I will also, in the description of this video, I'll put a link to some free printables that you can use instead of the things that we gave to the workshop participants so that everyone can join us. A note to our local workshop participants. We gave you some of the materials at the end of that workshop, but there are a few more things that you will need to put it together. And as far as the paper things that you'll need, we're going to put them in a big envelope and leave them at the library so that you can pick them up and use them to finish putting this project together. A glue stick and scissors should be the only extra tools that you need to put this together. But if there's anything else, I will put that information in the description box below. So let's get started. First, you'll need the paper bag, the small paper bag, lunch bag that we gave you at the end of the workshop, and your glue stick. And you're going to glue down the flap of the bag. This is not strictly necessary, but it kind of helps with the stability of the whole cover. This paper bag will become the cover of your little mini journal. You'll see that I use an old gift card or a scraper to smooth down paper that I've glued, especially when I've used a glue stick. I've found that this will help avoid paper cuts, so it's kind of handy to have something like that on standby to use when you're gluing things. I don't always use it. I have yet to get a paper cut, but I'm very careful. But that's something to keep in mind. So I'm spreading glue all over the one side of the paper bag. Now I'll take the scrapbook paper and line it up. And you can see I kind of had it a little bit crooked. And I saw that and I started just to smooth it down with my scraper. And then I noticed that it was a little crooked, which would be fine, but I decided to go ahead and, while the glue was still not completely dry, I decided to take it up and go ahead and try and straighten it again. I didn't get it straight the second time either, but it's a little better. So I'm smoothing that down. And remember what I said about things don't need to be perfect. I like them better if they're not perfect, so don't worry about it. So I've got that glued onto one side. Now I decided you could either cut it off, or what I decided to do is glue that and just fold it over the edge. It makes it easier, and it makes a nice finished edge on that side. So that's what I did, and of course it has the bonus of partially covering the other side that we're going to cover anyway. So I just fold it over and smooth that down. And again, see, I did not use the scraper on here, and you can use it or not use it. It's up to you. So there, with one sheet, we already have it almost covered. So I'll take my second sheet, and this time I'm putting the glue on the part of the bag that is not covered yet. And you'll see I also put it up a little bit onto the paper that's already on there, and I overlap it just a little bit. You don't have to do this, but it ensures that you will not have any paper bag showing. So now it's completely covered, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to also overlap the scrapbook paper so that it will cover that edge as well. So I cut it a little bit longer than the edge of the paper bag. And again, I'm going to put the glue stick on that flap that will overlap and fold that down over the edge, and your cover is covered. There it is. So this is now the cover of your little paper bag journal. Very easy. Now, if you're using a book page instead of scrapbook paper, it would work similarly. You may have to do some patchwork, which I love. You know that I love the look of that. So that will work in the same way, just cover it up. Now, here I noticed that my surface was a little sticky from the glue stick because I didn't use something underneath to protect the surface. And of course you can do what I'm doing here. You can just wipe off the glue, but to save yourself that step, I generally, and you'll see me do this with gluing something later in the video, I usually like to put some sort of like scrap paper or like a junk mail catalog underneath what I'm gluing so that it keeps my surface from getting sticky. And when the surface is sticky, it can ruin some of your printables and your materials. So that's just something to watch for. Now that the cover is made, we're going to put in the signature, just the paper that will be in your little journal to write on. I used some notebook paper that was left over from Reese from school that he had the spiral bound notebooks and didn't use all the pages, so I saved them. And I took out 3 pages. Now, I like the look of things being a little messy in my journals. That's actually the way I prefer them. Now, how you do this part is up to you. If you don't like the look of the scrappy part, then you can tear it off like I'm doing here and still have a nice rough edge, which I think also looks nice. Or you'll see in a second, I also, there's a line there. So you can just cut along the line and chop that whole edge off, and that'll be fine too. I do it both ways with this just to show you. So here, yes, I grab my scissors and I cut along that line to give a more straight edge. You could, if you have a paper cutter, that would give you an even straighter edge. So whatever you're most comfortable with, whatever you want, however you want it to look in the finished journal. So now I'm looking at my cover, and was a little off frame there, I apologize, but where that bottom part of the bag was is where you're going to fold your cover in thirds. And I wanted to show you, I'm using a bone folder, but you can also use just the handle of your scissors, but using that to kind of give yourself a nice, straight, good crease in your paper, especially in something thick like this, is very helpful. It just makes it makes the fold a little better, for lack of a better way to say it. So now I have the cover folded basically the way that I will want it in the finished journal. Now I'm also taking a look to see which is the open end. That's the end that is closed on the paper bag. So, and the side that's open is what I'm going to want on the left. This is not necessary, but the reason I'm doing it that way is it will give you an opening to store things, to store extra paper or whatever you want to put in there. It'll be a little like storage compartment. So now, for some of you, this will be the easy part. For some of you, this may be the tricky part. What you're going to want to do is make your paper that you're using for your signature, you're going to want to make it fit into your little journal. So I'm kind of lining it up so that I can see where the edges are, and I'm using a ruler or any straight edge, but a good ruler just to tear off. Oh, and see, I didn't tear it straight. It comes into play later, but I'm tearing it off so that it will fit inside the journal. And I will do that with all 3 of my notebook pages. If this part is difficult for you, feel free to rewind the video and watch again how I line up the paper on the bag so that I can see that it will fit properly when the journal is closed. So I've got 2 of them done. I'm going to line up the 3rd one, and see now here I scoot it down a little bit so I can see where the edge of the bag is so that I can tear it in the right place. You see that? This is the part that for me is difficult to explain, so I'm glad you have a visual to see what I'm trying to talk about making the papers fit. Now I also took the parts that I had torn off, and that gave me a couple of extra pages, so that was nice. Now here's the one that got ripped when I was trying to tear it, and I decided not to use that one, but that's fine because I have plenty of pages. Now I will also need to fold them, and again I'm looking for where the open side is. That'll be on the left, and then you get your cover turned around and it helps to check every so often. So that crease there on the right side is where I'm going to be stapling the signature. And again, you need to line it up just like this so that it will fit inside the journal when it's closed. And you know, if it doesn't, if yours sticks out a little bit too far, you can always cut off the extra. That's no big deal. So I'm using my bone folder. Again, you could use the handle of your scissors, and I'm folding it so that it's all the pages are lined up and will fit inside. Now I'm going to tear off some of the extra, but I also decide to keep a couple of the pages long so that they can be folded in and so that they aren't all exactly the same. You can do this whatever way you want. If it doesn't turn out exactly like mine, that's absolutely fine. But I use my straight edge again. I tear off the extra here, and I have the pages that will be folded over and stuck right there. And then I also have 2 pages that I didn't tear off. And what I'll do is I will line up the fold there so that that'll be stapled in too. And then I'll take the end. See, it's a little bit too long to just fold it in half. See, it would stick out. So I decide that I will fold a smaller fold and then fold that over. And that will definitely fit. And I do the same with the other sheet that I pulled out. And I put the other one, I stick the other one in as well. Oh, I've actually folded them both at the same time. I saved myself a little time. But I don't put them right next to each other. I put them in different places in the signature, just again, so that it's not completely uniform. Again, I want this to look a little messy. So I also, when I lined that up there, I saw that it was going to be a little too wide. So I just turned it upside down, and now it fits. As you're going through this, if you see something that doesn't quite work right, see what you can do to adapt and make it look the way you want it to. There. Now, I'm getting a couple of paper clips. You could also use binder clips. I use binder clips most often, but this is not very thick, so big paper clips will work fine. And I'm just clipping this in place so that it won't move while I get my stapler and get ready to staple the signature in. So any standard stapler should work fine. These paper bags are the ones that I gave you. If you're using the small lunch bags, they're not very big, and the stapler should reach to where you need to staple it. If it doesn't reach, you could always just use open the stapler up and use it that way. But again, a standard stapler, and I show you just with the standard reach, should be just fine. So I just am going to staple, put 2 staples in there, and then your signature will be attached. And you can make sure it's folded right. You can take your paper clips off, and that part is done. And if you struggle with that part a little bit, give yourself a pat on the back, take a deep breath, and maybe pause, get a cup of coffee or a glass of water, and then we'll move on to the next part. Now, this part is optional, but I think it adds something nice to this little journal. This is a little more, I wouldn't even say it's more advanced, but it's another step that you can absolutely skip if you don't feel like doing it. But what I'm doing is I'm taking the part of the scrapbook paper that I cut off, that I didn't need to use on the cover, and I'm going to make a little pocket out of it. You can also do the same thing if you're using a book page. So you can line it up so that your patterns match if you want, but I'm not that ambitious, and it wasn't that necessary to me. So here you can see I'm kind of showing you that, if you line it up just right, it can look seamless, but that's not important to me. So I'm not doing that. That would take a lot of extra work. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking a look at how wide it needs to be. And I'm going to kind of put a little fold there so I know where to tear off the end. And I'm just folding it over to give it so that I can just tear it off. You could use scissors, obviously. Now I'm folding this in half just because we'll be putting it on as a pocket, and that will give it a little bit of extra stability, because what I'm using here is like a copy-weight scrapbook paper. If you're using cardstock, then you don't really necessarily need to fold it in half, but I wanted to, again, give it a little more stability. So here's a trick for you. We're just making a very simple pocket. So you're going to be gluing the 2 sides and the bottom. And sometimes when you're gluing, it can get a little confusing as to which edges you need to put the glue on. So if you hold the edge that you don't want to glue, then you'll see which ones you do want to glue. So you've glued on the right, the left, and the bottom. And if I'm not mistaken, I didn't show you this in the video, but I left it so that the folded paper could be flipped up for an extra journaling spot. Obviously, that is completely optional and will depend on what paper you're using, or if you decide to make a pocket here at all. So very completely optional. So I did put the pocket in. So now I'm just getting some scrap paper. That was some paper that I like to use from a little planner that I have sitting by my desk, just to show you where you can stick things in the pocket. Paper or journaling tags, which I have some free printables in my shop that you could print out some tags. In our shop, Reese and I, we make the things together. And I always say it's we, things that we have in our shop. So now I'm just going back and reinforcing the folds with my bone folder. And there, it's the base of the little paper bag journal is constructed. Give yourself another pat on the back. The only part that's left now is the decoration on the front and the tie closure. So I had printed several sheets of options for an image, a focal point to go on the front of your little journals. And so now I'll just go through the process of deciding which one I want to put on there. And here you'll also see that I discover that the things that I printed for the decorations for the front, for the focal points, are a little tiny bit too wide for my liking. So I kind of have to go through them and take a look and see which one will fit. See, it would be a little bit too wide and I could trim it down, but some of them won't look as good trimmed down. So what I will have available at the library and as the free printable for this, I will have sized down so that hopefully it will fit better than these that I had originally printed. And I finally do decide on the butterfly with the butterfly background. Mostly because that one, I decided that that one would be one of the easier ones to trim down without it looking obviously trimmed down. So that's what I went with. So I'm cutting it out. And then I'm going to trim off the sides to make it fit a little better so that it's not, it would fit, but I wanted there to be a little bit of an edge. I wanted it to be centered a little better. So I'll trim off just a little strip on both sides to make it fit. And you know what? I'm saving, this is a good place to mention that I'm saving those little scraps that I cut off. And you don't have to, but printed scraps, especially with a nice pattern like that, and especially because those are kind of neutral, I like to save those scraps for making clusters, which is something that we will be doing later. Not in this video, but in other videos. So, okay, here I'm pulling out my glue book that I mentioned earlier, where I get something to put underneath what I'm gluing so that I don't get glue on my surface. I'm just using an old Uline catalog because it seems like a good way to use them. So, but then I just fold over my page, and you can use those glue pages for other projects too in the future. So again, we try not to waste anything if we can help it. So, okay, that has glue on it. I'm going to go ahead and stick it down on the cover of our little journal. There, that part's done. And I want to put a word on the cover. So I pull out my sheet of words. And I decide which one I want to use. And this time I just went with the one that was easiest to cut out. I like all of the words. I created this sheet of words, so I already know that I like all the words that are on there. And I get ready. I got it all trimmed down. I'm trying to decide, do I want it on the top or the bottom? And I decide to put it on the bottom. Another gluing method with a glue stick, just do it right there on my finger without getting out my glue book. Easy peasy. So now I'll glue that down. And there, that part's done too. All that's left now is to make a little closure for the mini journal. And for the workshop participants, I gave you a strip of fabric. And if you weren't at the workshop, you could use a piece of string, you could use your own piece of fabric. You could also use a Velcro dot. I like those for this kind of closure. But the fabric, by the way, is just it was just an old bed sheet that I got from a thrift store, and I use it for, obviously it's huge, so I use it for a lot of things, just tear it into strips. Now, when you have those little strings, when you do tear your fabric, I saved those little strings because those are also nice for layering in clusters. So that went into my little small box of scraps that I keep on my desk. Now I'm just kind of seeing how long it needs to be and tying a little bow. And that's just right. And then I'm cutting off the extra. By the way, I should mention that I didn't cut off the extra until I saw that the bow was a good size and that it was going to be long enough. That seems like something that's important to mention because I think it's easy to cut it first and then it's cut too short and then you're stuck. So cut it after you see how long it needs to be. And also there should be extra on the fabric that I gave you. So hang on to that too, because that's something that will be very useful for other projects. So there it is. And I wanted to mention that you can, to open your little journal, you can either untie it, or if tying bows is a little challenging for you, it is for some people, just you can always, here I'm just kind of flipping through and showing you your little signature. You can always keep it tied and just slide the closure on and off of your journal. That will work too. Again, make this yours and do whatever works best for you. Here I'm going to retie it. And if you don't tie it too tight, again, you can just slide the closure on and off. Save yourself some time and effort. There you go. And to slide it back on, you might need to slightly bend your cover a little tiny bit to get it to slide on, but it's flexible, so you can do that. I also wanted to show you, this was, you remember when I said we were leaving that open part on the left? And if you didn't, don't worry about it. This is no big deal. This is just a little extra. But that open part, again, gives you a little hidden compartment to store journal tags or your ephemera. And depending on what you're using this for, this would be a good place for you to put your little pieces of paper where you write things you're thankful for, or that'd be a good place to store your concert tickets or whatever you've got. We hope you enjoyed the project. Be sure to check the description box for any extra notes for this. We'll put them in there. But you did it. Congratulate yourself. We thank you very much for joining us. We hope you'll join us for future videos. And we would love to see what you've done. So send us an email or leave us a comment in the comments below and tell us how you enjoyed this project. And thank you very much from Reese and Lindy at Lovely Villain Designs.